There's been much talk in recent days about the prosecution and conviction of Roger Stone. I have a long history with Roger Stone. You can go back and read my autobiography, Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. I know Roger Stone. I know what he's done. I know what he's capable of. He has defamed my client, Jerry Corsi, and me. He was fearful that Corsi would testify against him in his criminal prosecution, for which he was convicted on 5 counts of perjury and 2 other counts with regard to witness tampering and obstruction of justice. Roger Stone is a self-styled dirty trickster. You can remember the Netflix documentary where he bragged about the kinds of tricks that he does. And while I've had experience with him in the past, I represented him. And he also, for a short period of time, was my campaign manager, in effect, when I ran for the U.S. Senate in my home state of Florida in 2003 in the Republican primary. Unfortunately, I've come into contact with him again unwittingly. I hope basically that he would have left me alone, my clients alone, and simply went on with his life doing whatever he prefers to do, however questionable that is. Now, over the last few days, I've taken his deposition in Florida, and he was extremely insulting. He cursed at me a number of times, called me all kinds of names, carried on basically like a crazy person. Now, the president is sticking his neck out with regard to intervening in a conviction which he incurred. I actually sat in on the trial. I was monitoring that for Dr. Jerome Corsi. And while this judge is a partisan judge, there's no question, I've had my own difficulty with her with regard to suing Hillary Clinton over the raid in Benghazi for the families of Ty Woods and Sean Smith. Very, very partisan. She did conduct that trial fairly. I sat there and I watched it. Now, with regard to the jury, there were allegations that attempts were made to try to influence the jury through public relations and other things at that time. And of course, the foreman of the jury is now the subject of great controversy. The Justice Department, if you want to call it that, certainly this Justice Department is frankly compromised, if not corrupt. I agree with that. They have not prosecuted one of the criminals. This is something that we're pursuing at Judicial Watch. We are your Justice Department. But in this instance, a recommendation was made by the prosecutors to incarcerate Roger Stone for 7 to 9 years. Clearly, that was excessive. There's no question about that. But you have to understand what prosecutors do. And they frequently do overreach, but they ask for more than they want because they know it's going to be cut back. And this was tactical, but it also was vindictive in many ways. Now, while I do not sympathize with Roger Stone, while I believe that he should have been convicted for lying under oath and also witness tampering and obstruction of justice, the sentence that was recommended clearly was too long. However, here's the counterproductive part, and it's why the president should be careful and think things through before he starts tweeting, because he's now challenged the authority of this very partisan judge, Amy Berman Jackson. He has, in fact, made it worse for Roger Stone because she's going to react, and she'll probably give him a greater sentence than he otherwise would have gotten if Trump hadn't stuck his nose into this thing. Now, Trump may be setting this up to pardon Stone. That wouldn't be right either. A pardon would not be correct. Stone should do time. He should do probably 18 months, maybe to 2 years, because you cannot tolerate this kind of conduct in the legal system. You know, the legal system's broken. The legal system is largely corrupt, but you can't come in front of either Congress or a court of law and lie under oath and expect that that's okay. And that's what he did in his own words. He was convicted in his own words. In fact, the defense for Roger Stone, it was an ineffective defense because there was no defense, didn't even present a witness, not one witness at the trial. So when you hear all of these pundits, and I love Rush and I pray for his health. I don't love Hannity. I think Hannity is a dishonest human being. There are others out there that have run interference. They don't know the facts. Okay, they don't know exactly what occurred at that trial. I sat there every single day and watched. And while I don't like those prosecutors, in fact, I have sued them on behalf of Dr. Jerome Corsi, who they tried to get to suborn perjury to implicate the president. in Russian collusion and crimes. I got to tell you, they tried this case in a professional way. They did it with evidence. And Stone had no evidence, zip. So this is the problem here, is that there's a conundrum, is that Roger Stone does deserve to do time, but he doesn't deserve to do time of 7 to 9 years. And I would say that if the president hadn't intervened, he would probably only have gotten about 18 months to 2 years, maybe 3 years max. And you can get out, for good behavior, okay, before that. But there has to be a consequence to lying to a court of law. And it's not an excuse, as Hannity would try to exploit on his show. I was watching a little bit last night. He exploits everything because he wants ratings. And frankly, with a high school education, a lot of smart people that went to high school never went to college. But Hannity's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And that kind of demagoguery does not help the corruption in our system. Yes, there is prosecutorial abuse. Yes, there is selective prosecution. But the fact that Comey, Clapper, Brennan, the Obamas, the Clintons, the rest of them, who we're seeking to prosecute at Freedom Watch, have thus far gotten off scot-free, is the fault of our, frankly, compromised Attorney General, who's a little better than Jeff Sessions. Who has he indicted? Nobody. But yet he sticks his nose into the sentencing, which made it worse for Roger Stone, because I can assure you that Judge Amy Berman Jackson doesn't like him either. And Berman Jackson is a raving leftist. There's no question about it. In fact, most of the Obama and Clinton appointed judges on the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia are highly partisan political hacks. That's true. But in this case, Stone was convicted by a jury, and that jury swore that they would determine things independently without bias. I don't know whether that happened or not, but I can assure you one thing. Stone doesn't want a new trial for the jury because the same evidence will be presented again, and he will likely be convicted again. So what's happening here is a misinformation campaign that was been whipped up by someone in and around Roger Stone, if not Roger Stone himself, and he's been chided by the judge before for breaking gag orders. And in fact, he broke gag orders through some of his surrogates like Michael Caputo to try to harm my client, Jerry Corsi, claiming that he was collaborating with Mueller, when in fact Corsi's the only one who actually ever sued Mueller. So take it all with a grain of salt is what I'm saying. Listen to my radio show this week. You can go to freedomwatchusa.org. You can go to radioamerica.com. You can go to iTunes, Patreon, Facebook, other places to listen to it, because we're going to have Jerry Corsi on the show, and he's going to set matters straight with regard to Roger Stone and what went on in this case and how his involvement, he was not indicted. Roger Stone was, and that tells you a lot. So take what you hear with a grain of salt. These people don't know what they're talking about. I love Rush, but he didn't know what he's talking about either. And I have to speak up when I hear nonsense coming out of any commentator, whoever it may be, and I pray for Rush's health and safety and long life, because he is important to the conservative movement. He is the greatest radio talk show host of all time. He's bright, unlike Hannity. He's very bright. Hannity kind of just steals from him for his show every single day. So I pray for him. But these are the things that you need to understand from people who actually know what they're talking about. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, spread this podcast, listen to this week's radio show. I'm going to be talking about this because this is symptomatic of the interplay between the media and our broken and corrupt justice system, which doesn't prosecute people who are on the right side of the fence, but prosecutes people who are not on the right side. However, in this case with Roger Stone, he deserved to be convicted. He deserves to do time. Not 7 to 9 years, but he deserves to do time because examples have to be set. And these other people need to be prosecuted too, whether it's Comey, Rod Rosenstein, Clapper, Brennan, the lovebird Strucken Page, Bruce Orr, the Clintons, Obama, the rest of them. And you have my word at Freedom Watch that we will use our citizens' grand juries to seek indictments, to have them convicted and sentenced. And hopefully the president, rather than just tweeting, will mete out those sentences on behalf of the American people. I want to thank you for listening to me. God bless you, your family. God bless America, and God save America. And I'll be back Monday with another podcast. But listen to our radio show this week at freedomwatchusa.org. RadioAmerica.com is broadcast with over 50 stations throughout the United States on Sunday. And go to Patreon, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify. You can also get it there and spread it, because frankly, it's time the American people heard from people who knew what they were talking about and not just shooting their mouth off. So until Monday, God bless you.